Welcome everyone to the LFMS Marketing Symposium, and I have the lovely Tammy Patzer here today. Thank you for being part of this amazing symposium.
Well, thanks so much for inviting me. I'm really excited to share what I can about book publishing and what it means to be a best-selling author. And I hope that there's a lot of takeaways for everyone today.
Oh, I think there will be some amazing takeaways. I know just based on me doing my internet stalking of you, sorry, not in a bad way, in a good way, that you're amazing, and I'm so honored you're here. You know, I do things a little differently. I could read your bio, and in some cases I've done that, but I would really love for you, Tammy, to just share about yourself. Like, what do you feel like is super important for people to know before we get started? And then I have a whole bunch of questions for you.
Okay, so what's super important about me? I think what's really important to know about me is that I really want to help empower women, and I have a radio show called Women Innovators. Ooh. And from Women Innovators, I've actually created a best-selling book series called Women Innovators: Leaders, Makers, and Givers, Women Who Make a Daily Difference. And I really feel, and this comes from my heart, that my mission here is to be the messenger's messenger to help people be seen and heard. And the radio show and the book series is part of that big journey, because everyone has a story, and I'm here to help everyone tell it.
I love that, Tammy, and I'm going to share this from my heart. I really feel like people are dying today inside because they want to be heard. I mean, it is amazing. I love social media. I love marketing. I've been doing it for 15 years, but I find in some ways, even though we're more connected, people are lonelier than they used to be. It almost feels that way. So I love that you're actually like, that's your mission, to like help people be heard and be visible and share their story. People will need that. They need that human connection. I think that's amazing.
They really do, and it's really important, more now than ever. Like you said, we're more connected than ever, yet we're more disconnected than ever.
Exactly. You hit it on the head. So that is that's one thing I love about you, and I'm so glad that you brought that up. So if I may I dive into the questions that I have?
Sure.
Awesome. Sure. So, you know, you're obviously, you know how to become a best-selling author, and I want to talk a little bit about not only how to become a best-selling author, but then what do you do from there? Like, what do you do once you become a best-selling author to like not only to get out there more? So what are some tips that you can share with us how to become a best-selling author to start with?
Well, first you have to write a book or speak a book.
Okay.
And for many people, I just want to make it clear, I specialize in helping people with nonfiction books, business-related books, to use as a tool to grow your business. So if you're a coach or an entrepreneur or a professional, I help you to get your expertise into a book form. And then, of course, it can be turned into a bestseller. And the whole reason why you're having a bestseller is so that you can be seen as the expert you are. And in the world today, it's always been this way. Books are very powerful. People perceive authors to be experts. So it can start at the level of become an author. Then you can become a best-selling author or an international best-selling author on Amazon. We're not talking about the New York Times. Most of us don't have the budget to become a New York Times bestseller, but the playing field has been leveled. And if you don't mind, I'll tell a little bit about my journey.
Yes,
about this and my big why. My mother was a writer. I used to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning to this tap, 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 typewriter keys, and it was my mom writing at 3 o'clock in the morning, her novels, and that was the only time she could squeeze time for herself. And she would actually dream. Her characters would do things in the dream. She'd get up and write down what they did. And this was in the late 60s, and I was maybe 9 or 10 years old. And my mom, she had a heart condition, and so she really couldn't walk very far or do a lot of things. So my job was to take the manuscript to the post office to be mailed off to New York. Back then, you had to have an agent or you had to submit to a big New York publisher. Wow. So I'd take the manuscript to the postmaster and I'd shove it over the counter, and he'd ask me, he'd say, "How much do you want to insure it for?" Right. And of course, I'd look at him with these big eyes and I would say, $1 million. And he would just smile at me and he'd, give me a receipt, and I'd go home. It was about a block. And my job, again, I was 9 years old, 10 years old. The years went by. My mom got rejection letters, yet she still wrote. Well, in 1985, my mom was still writing. She got an agent and things were looking really good. Finally, she was going to get published, and she passed away without ever getting her novels published. And my mom wrote about 3 or 4 novels, hundreds of short stories, and a lot of poetry. And I literally took that writing in plastic cartons, and I've moved across the United States several times, and life just kept getting in the way. I ended up being a single mom with 3 kids, working 2-3 jobs at a time, never quite ever having the time to work on my mom's stuff. Finally, I did publish at least one of her poetry books, but I still have a ton of her stuff. It's all in manuscript form, so it has to be, translated into electronic format. But and today I help people become bestsellers all the time. The Women Innovator series, for example, so far 64 women have become international bestsellers since January.
Wow.
I've done hundreds, probably I think 200, 250 interviews with women and men, because I also host Business Innovators. And it's funny because men, I talk about the women a lot more. Men will go, "Well, don't you work with men?" Yeah. And I say, yes, I do. But I have a passion to work with women.
So one of the things I think is super important when you're writing, and I like to write, but I love writing, but I wouldn't consider myself like this amazing, writer or anything. I enjoy it, but one of the things that I think is super important when you're writing to get published is, and it's the same with marketing, right? I mean, it's all relative, because a lot of times you write a book, it's a tool, especially if you're a coach and entrepreneur, to get yourself out there. So you have to know your audience, right? When you write.
Exactly.
Can you speak to that a little bit? I think that's really important with writing a book as a tool for marketing.
So let's just kind of take some steps of what you might do. If you're going to write a book, let's say you're a coach and you're specializing in transformation, that seems to be a big buzzword now. So you would have to go, well, who is that one person I'm speaking to? Who is your avatar? And actually think of that person, give that person a name, an age. What do they do? What do they like? Are they married? Are they divorced? Are they a grandparent? Are they working full time? Are they an entrepreneur? Who are they? And then you can tailor your book or anything in your marketing to that one person. And a lot of people are a little bit afraid of that, because they're like, well, then I'll miss out on this person or this person. But what really happens is you actually start to attract the ideal people to you, because, for example, Facebook, 2 billion with a B people are on Facebook, how many people do you really need for clients? Really, you just need a few. So start out thinking about that. Who is that ideal person? Think about all of the conversations you've had. What are the frequently asked questions that people ask you over and over and over again? Those can become the basis of your book. And then, of course, should ask questions. What are the questions people should be asking, but they don't know enough to ask? And if you can brainstorm, and this is one of my favorite things that I do, is as simple as it is, you can set the timer on your phone or on a kitchen timer, your computer, but just set the computer or the timer for like 15 minutes, brainstorm, like what are the frequently asked questions and the should ask questions, and you're going to end up with probably anywhere from 20 to 50 questions. Then you can organize them in, it could be a tips book, for example. The other day I helped a car salesman. He had 49 tips for how to buy a car, and he had, like a sentence. And so what we did is I interviewed him for my radio show, and in an hour and a half, he wrote his book by answering my questions.
That is brilliant. That is, oh my gosh, that's amazing. What a great, because for some people, they think, okay, writing a book for marketing, purposes as a tool is great. A lot of authors or a lot of coaches and entrepreneurs do that, but it's also really like overwhelming, I think, for people to think, oh my gosh, writing a book, right? But you just gave, what did you interview him for an hour?
An hour and a half, and his book actually, after we got done, his book is probably 80 pages, and to have a book with a spine where you can print on it, if you were going to do a physical book, say in Create Space, which is on Amazon, you'd want about 120 pages. So you could fill that book out with note pages, with the table of contents, with photos, with quotes. I mean, there's a lot of ways to just expand it a little bit. And then, of course, what everybody wants to know is, where. In Amazon, you have Kindle, Direct Publishing, and Create Space. They're two sides of the Amazon publishing coin. Very easy to use. You might have to spend a little bit of money to help get a professional cover done. There are many places where you can get that done on a budget. There are people on Fiverr, which is a site which is Fiverr, and they'll start at $5, but I would say that more than likely you're going to spend between $20 to $50 on a good cover, because you're going to want the cover to work for both Kindle and on your physical book. So, they'll have to design that. And then, of course, you can get it formatted. Again, you can find people to do that work on Fiverr. Some people, they go, oh, well, I'll just do it all myself. And what I'm going to tell you is, if you're better off, spend a little bit of money. Like if you only had $100 to do your book, you could actually get your book formatted, a nice cover, and then it is easy to upload it yourself. It's a matter of literally uploading a JPEG cover and a Word docx document into Kindle and Create Space, and then they will actually show you. They have a previewer so you can see if it looks okay, and boom, you've got a book. And the way, I know everybody wants to go, well, how does it become a bestseller? Number one, it has to be for sale. Some people mistakenly think, well, I can just give it away. Well, then it's not a bestseller. It's a best freebie. But a couple things happen on Amazon that's kind of cool. when you upload it, there's this window of approximately 30 days. And if your book starts to sell, you could earn the honor of hot new release in your category. And I'll just tell you, you want to leverage that by sending out press releases, and there are press services to do that. I actually offer those services.
Okay, well, that's
also
great. Yeah, if you could share now your website, so if someone's
okay. Actually, where I want people to go to find me is send me an email directly. The reason is because my website, I'm just getting it redesigned. It's tammypatzer.com. But if you really want to connect with me, use my email, which is Tammy, T-A-M-I, social media @gmail, and just say, hey, talk to me about my book. And then we could set up an appointment. So with that, so you publish your book, and so you have that opportunity. And then, of course, what's really important is that you have the proper categories for your book. Often, this is where people get stuck, and this is a part that takes a little bit more education, because you have to actually look at your book, what is it about, and go look at who your competition is. And sometimes you may not be able to compete to become a bestseller. So you have to look at other options of maybe there's a different category that still works, but that isn't as competitive. But whatever you do, don't just upload it and say it's not classifiable. I actually had a client who did that, and I kind of laughed because her category was absolutely positively clear because it was a very unique topic. But she was like, well, I don't know. So she put not classifiable. Well, when you do that, that means that out of the millions of books on Amazon, you would just be kind of floating around out there, and nobody would be able to find you. So you have to really niche down. It goes back to that very first thing we talked about. Who are you writing for? Who's your ideal client? That's the same thing you have to think about. Well, who is my ideal client? Where would they go to look for a book on my topic? And it's a little complicated. That's why I'm not going to, to all the details of it.
People can reach out to you if they want to learn more about details, because that's what you're the expert on. I have a question for you that I think is super important when it comes to writing a book, because it all goes back to like marketing. My philosophy with marketing is radically giving or extremely giving. Like, I give so much, right? Because at the end of the day, I feel like when I'm on the phone with someone, or I'm sharing and I'm teaching, I feel like I call it the 3 C's: a client, a collaboration, or a connection. Someone's going to become one of those 3 C's. And for me, it's all about service, right? So at the end of the day, even though I'm giving so much, some people still need that extra help, and that's why they hire you, right? Some people can go do it on themselves, and that's totally fine because they're going to go make more impact. So when you're writing a book as a tool, because I really want to focus on that piece of it, because that's what an entrepreneur would be doing, right? You're writing a really awesome book as a tool to really get your name out there and as a marketing tool. Would you follow that same philosophy of like really giving? What are your thoughts on that?
You mean when you're writing the book?
Yeah.
Yeah, don't be afraid to give your best stuff, because the things, it happens to me all the time. I'll think something is so easy, so logical, so clear, because I can see it in my mind, but that's me. And it isn't like that for everyone else. Sometimes I've actually had people who were like, oh, Tam, you just exhaust me because I can see things so clearly. So, but don't ever be afraid of giving away your good information, because most of the time, especially in a book, if somebody's going to read your book about whatever the topic is, they're reading it because they're seeing you as the expert you are. They're going to reach out to you because no matter how much you read, it's not the same as having someone who's already done it over and over and over again. So they're going to reach out to you and say, hey, do you think you could help me? And then there are, just like what you said, there are other people who can read a book and go, oh, I can do that, ABC. A lot of times I can read a book and I go, oh, okay. And sometimes there are missing pieces because I think people do leave out information, but sometimes I don't think it's intentional. No. It's just that it's so natural to them that they don't think about some vital step. It's just like a recipe. If you think about a book that you're creating, especially for a credibility or an authority type book, right, you'll be trying to share as much as you can. But here's the reality. I've been doing this for 25 years. I was in newspapers, media, television. No matter how much I can put into a book, I cannot put in all of the nuances, right, of the time that I spent reading and writing and, day after day of, for example, when I was a newspaper editor, every day my job was to read a bunch of information, choose what needed to be in the paper, edit it, design it, get it all out there day after day after day. And in the newspaper business, often you're shorthanded, so you would have to know how to do everything. And so that type of experience, you really can't put into a book. You can tell stories, you can give examples, you can give case studies, but really, your book is like a business card or a door opener. It's a tool. And I just got back from a trip, and that's why you might see me looking around, but I think my book is in the bottom of my suitcase. I actually have a great story about my very first book I wrote. I wrote it, I didn't speak it because I wasn't that sophisticated yet to know, hey, I could just speak this. So I enlisted the help of my daughter, who happens to be a PhD doctor of adult education. And she would say to me, okay, give me 5 things. And then I would type up the answer. So for example, my book is called, the first book I wrote is called Ask Tammy, a logbook of 365 social media tips, tricks, and tools. So as the title suggests, I put together 365 social media tricks, tips, and tools. So I have like 5 tips about video, 5 tips about mobile marketing, and about social media. And then I have how to set up your YouTube, your Facebook, your LinkedIn, and all of these really cool tools. And I designed the book to be a logbook so you could write in it. But if you did something, one thing a day, by the end of a year, you would have 365 digital assets. So that was the thinking. That book, even though it's available on Kindle and on Amazon as a physical, soft cover book, but the reality is I haven't sold thousands and thousands of those books. I've probably sold a couple hundred of them, but I have made probably, oops, sorry about that. My computer's starting to rock. I've made maybe about $500,000 since 2011 from the book. And it's like, but I didn't sell a lot of books. How did I do it? I held the book in my hand when I got on stages, or when I was at the local community foundation luncheon one day. I had the book. It was on the table, sitting there, and it's a bright yellow cover, and it has like a painting of me with the world in my hand. Oh, cool. And I did this presentation about social media, and in the audience, Who was in the audience that day but the director of adult education at Florida Gulf Coast University.
Wow.
So guess what? He says, she's the author of this book. I do have the educational credentials. I have a master's degree in mass communications and instructional technology. So, you know, I met the criteria, and he said to me, would you be interested in creating a course for Florida Gulf Coast University? I said, yes. And I created their very first social media certification program, and it is still going on today. And I've also created several other courses for them.
Tammy.
That book,
that's amazing. And that's such a golden nugget. I call it the golden nugget. That's such a great takeaway, because that book as a marketing tool helped you create these courses, and you made so much money. What did you say? $5,000 in like.
Yes. And that was not from that course, but then I also was asked by an online marketing person to help him because he had an accent. He was like Dutch, and he had a little bit of an accent. And so he started to have me on his trainings, and my little segment was called Ask Tammy. And tips from Tammy, you know, tips. And I was the teacher, Tammy.
So Tammy,
and
I have a question around that.
Yes.
So you clearly demonstrated with your stories, which are absolutely phenomenal, how important it is to really think about using, you know, creating a book, which
yes,
you can help them with. So I really want them, you know, women here, LFM women in this symposium, please reach out to Tammy, because she's an expert at this. Super important. But the other thing that I really would like to touch on is, so you write this book, you have this marketing tool. How do you market it?
Okay. So how do you market it? There's so many ways that you can market it.
Like 3 top quick ways.
What I want to make clear, first of all, is don't think of that you're going to make your money from selling a bunch of books. Okay, that's number one. It's not about selling books at all. It's about creating a book so that you can be seen as the true expert you are, and you want it to become a best-selling book so that you can add that credential, international bestseller, to your credentials. And now here's the big secret that so many people never ever do. They become a bestseller. Now what? Okay, you have to leverage it. What does that mean? It means you have to tell the world that you've written a book, number one. You have to tell the world that you're a bestseller. How do you do that? Well, a couple ways. You can go on online radio shows or podcasts and talk about what you do. And there are a lot of free or low-cost podcasts that you can get on, and they range anywhere from 15 minutes up to an hour, where you can talk about yourself. That's one way. You could get on radio, terrestrial, AM, FM radio, again, talk about your book. And radio actually is a really good place to sell books, because people on radio, if you say, you know, go to www.tammypatzer.com/free, you know, like something like that, then people will go, and you can capture their email address. And here's a little aside on these shows. When you go on a podcast or show, ask if you can have a copy of the show, and if you can use it. And listen to this. You can embed it into your website, transcribe it, and there's a whole nother book that you could have, or a chapter in a book, or you can use it for content, okay? And you can use it as you could sell it or give it away as an opt-in for your email list and grow your email list. So if you don't know what a list is, that's your list of people who know, like, and trust you. And of course, you want to have that relationship with them so that they buy your services and your stuff. Okay, so you've got your podcast. Now, and this is really important, here's the big key. Everything you do, let's say that you get on a podcast, you do a telesummit or a symposium, you want to write a press release about it. You want to tell the world what you're doing. And I'm not talking about your mother's press release. I'm talking about the press releases of today, which are, pardon?
Like PR 2.0, which is like video,
yes,
video and images, and they really showcase.
Right. And they get sent out to all of the ABC, NBC, Fox, CBS affiliates, plus the big newspapers like Wall Street Select, Boston Globe, Miami Herald, all of those, and magazines, which, could include Forbes and Huffington Post and big digital magazines, because today digital assets or digital magazines are just as powerful as physical magazines. And the beauty of that is it grows your online footprint. For example, whenever I send a press release out, it often will get picked up by at least 350 or more affiliates of ABC, NBC, Fox, CW, shows up, grows my online footprint, and it just gets bigger, bigger, bigger. And on different radio shows, for example, on my radio show, Business Innovators or Women Innovators, it's iHeartRadio. So that's a big name. iHeartRadio, Stitcher, Spreaker, iTunes, Apple iTunes, let's see, Blog Talk Radio, and YouTube. Now, here's the cool thing about YouTube, and this is something that, another thing that a lot of people don't really realize, the power of all of those platforms. Every single one of those platforms gives you the opportunity to, number one, download your show or embed it or share it. Share it. For example, I can go into YouTube and I can share to Facebook. I can put it on all of my pages, all of my personal and my business pages. I can do LinkedIn, Facebook, Tumblr, just tons.
So one, if they have a book, you would suggest they get on like radio, podcasting, all of that.
Yes.
You take the show and repurpose it.
Yes.
Right? Okay, so is there one third real quick marketing technique that they could use to really get themselves out there a little bit before we wind up our call?
I would say to make sure and use the press releases.
Okay, the press releases.
So use podcasts, radio shows, use the share button. That's really important because in today's world, again, 2 billion people on Facebook, use the share button, talk yourself up. It's called a humble brag.
That's right.
You share it like, hey, I was on the show, and people, they like it. They're interested. It isn't bragging in the sense of that it's just different, but it's self-promotion, but it's the way that you have to do things and share, and other people will share too, and it can become something that is very interesting. But like you said, if there's one thing that, if you wanted to do something tomorrow, let's say that you've already got your book, you've written a book, go get yourself booked on a podcast. Okay. They could actually contact me and book themselves on my show and get rolling with that.
See, now I absolutely love that. That is amazing. And I know our time is somewhat limited and there's so much you can share, but that's why I want people to reach out to you. But let me ask you this. I know you're going to have a free gift that you're going to give away here today, but I have one last question for you. Um, can you tell us, like, what is one thing? So you shared some amazing things that they could do, but sometimes for people, like, everything can become overwhelming. If there's just one thing that they could do today in their business, is there either writing a book, or if you want to share one marketing tip, like, what is that one thing you think is like the most important thing they could implement today to get moving forward with their book?
If you're serious about writing your book, I would take 15 minutes, set the timer and do the brainstorming on the frequently asked questions.
Okay.
And a really cool thing that you could do that would be really easy to get your book started is you could use Facebook Live, which is very easy to use. Use Facebook Live and answer one question per little segment and save it. And guess what? Now you've got a video that you can use all over the internet for content. You can send that off and get it transcribed. That could create your book. And you could probably have your book written in a day by doing that simple one question, one answer Facebook Live, and just send it off. If you only had 5 minutes, you could do one question, one answer. And so think about that. If you only had 5 minutes every day for 20 days, let's say, 5 days a week, 5 minutes, by the end of that 20 days, you could have your book completely written with video marketing materials to go with it. So take 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay. You're absolutely amazing. I mean, there's just so much I would love to ask you, but we're limited on time. So do you mind sharing with these amazing women what your free gift is that they can get from you to really get to know you better and to become part of your tribe?
Okay.
You're amazing. I am so impressed by you. That's why I asked you to be on the symposium.
So what I would like to offer is that first step to be interviewed with me for Women Innovators. Come on, and you can book yourself you can actually go to my full name, tamarapatzer.youcanbook.me, and you can find an appointment time. I'll send you some pre-questions, and we'll have a great conversation, and that could be the beginning of your book or a chapter in a book, and it would be the beginning of you feeling this confidence about being seen and heard. And that would be what I would love to give that to everybody who wants it.
Tammy, that's amazing. What a genuinely heartfelt offer, because I know so many women, and I've heard this so many times, and men too, even though this is a symposium for women, but that are just afraid to get that started. They're dragging it. They're not sure where to start. So your genuine heartfelt offer, will you really help them get started? How amazing is that? That is something I really encourage you all that are listening to jump on that offer. Tammy is absolutely divine. I mean, I literally could interview her for 3 more hours and, pick her brain. But of course, I want to value her time and honor her for taking time out of her busy schedule to spend with us today. It has been very, very valuable. All the golden nuggets you shared with writing your book and the marketing tips that you shared. Wow, the press release, that is brilliant. I love the repurposing of content. Wow. I mean, some of those things I don't think people really think about, right? Because you get so hung up on the whole idea of just, I got to get this written. And then you're this best-selling author. Then you're like, okay, well, now what? It's like, right. It's almost like you had the baby and you've got this beautiful new baby and you're like, okay, well, how do I take care of it now, right? It's that whole concept, right? So amazing. Well, thank you so much, Tammy.
Well, thank you for inviting me. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I noticed we're both wearing red.
No, it's like Christmas in July, right? You have to have a good laugh, because originally when I decided to do this marketing symposium, because I really wanted to showcase women that had something to do with marketing, whatever that might look like in sales, I wanted to do the whole Christmas in July thing, but I got started.
Oh, really?
I know. So here we are, Christmas in July, right? Like, how fun is that as we're doing these amazing interviews? So it's so exciting. So it's always just meant to be, I feel like. So thank you, Tammy. I'm really appreciate it. And for those of you who are watching, thank you for taking your time today. And stay tuned for our amazing new speaker tomorrow as part of the LFM Marketing Symposium series. Have a
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.